Hi, welcome to Movista Movie Recap. Today I am here to present the most watched Hollywood science fiction movie named Tomorrowland. Spoiler ahead. The story begins in 1964. Child genius Frank attends the New York World's Exhibition to enter the inventors competition. Judge Nix is actually enough impressed by Frank's prototype jetpack, but he snappily changes his mind when Frank confesses the jetpack does not actually work well. Nix's adjunct Athena likes Frank, but Nix still does not allow him to enter the contest until the jetpack actually works. Frank leaves hugely agonized and cannot help allowing about all the times his own father told him he was just wasting his time. Suddenly he is approached by Athena, who gives him an orange lapel pin with a blue T and asks him to follow her and Nix without being noticed. Nix and his group going on a popular magnet and the line is relatively long, so Frank sneaks through the side and jumps into an empty boat. In the middle of the lift, a ray detects Frank's pin and opens a trap door that takes the boat down a dark corridor. A futuristic-looking cart appears and Frank is happy to enter it, but as soon as he steps in, essence hangouts block all doors and windows, and the cart begins shaking like crazy. Frank falls to the bottom and does not get to stand up until the cart stops. When the doors open, Frank steps out and finds himself on a platform girdled by heavy fog. To his shock, a flying motorcar passes by and he sees Athena with Nix outside. Frank tries to go after them, but giant robots appear in front of him and try to stop him. The Sprat runs around the platform trying to dodge the robotic arms and accidentally falls on the platform below, causing his jetpack to break. A friendly robot appears and grabs the jetpack to fix it before giving it back to Frank. At that moment, a bunch of guards show up to capture Frank, so he steps down, falling formally again. This time though he has his jetpack with him, therefore he puts it on and activates it, eventually getting to fly with it thanks to the robot's repairs. Frank flies through the fog and discovers he is in Tomorrowland, a futuristic megacity filled with only the brightest minds. When he sees Athena, Frank lands next to her, and takes the chance to show Nix that he's fixed the jetpack. Nix ignores him, but Athena takes Frank's hand to show him what his life will be like from now on. Times latterly in 2015, teenage girl Casey sneaks into NASA launch point in Florida to sabotage all the ministry that will be used for the obliteration because she does not want her father, who works as a NASA mastermind, to lose his job. Athena is watching it all from the murk, and after Casey returns home, Athena uses a small scanner to get Casey's DNA from her bike helmet and cannons it into her last Tomorrowland pin. The coming morning, Casey's father Eddie gets a call from work explaining the situation. Casey thinks she's saved his job, but Eddie reveals they'll bring relief cranes, so Casey really needs to stop trying. However, Casey reminds him keeping up stopgap is more important. In the evening, Casey tries to sabotage the obliteration again, but this time the police are staying for her and she gets arrested. Some hours laterally, someone pays the bail, and Casey picks up her things to return home. Among all the effects she finds the pin, and when she touches it, she suddenly sees a vision of a different place. The pin falls, and when Casey touches it again, the same thing happens. The coming time, Casey grabs the pin duly and finds herself looking at a huge megacity in the distance, but when she tries to walk to it, the pin falls and she's in jail again because walking made her bump against effects and people in the room. To avoid further trouble, Casey picks up the pin using goo wrapper. At that moment, Eddie shows up to pick Casey up after paying the bail. On their way home, he scolds Casey for her conduct, so she makes him touch the pin, promising it'll explain everything. But when Eddie touches the pin, nothing happens. Confused, Casey touches the pin herself and appears in the other world, coming to the conclusion this only workshop for her. Eddie gets tired of Casey rambling about the pin and takes it down from her. When they get home, Casey waits for Eddie to fall asleep to steal the pin from his night table. As soon as she touches it, she appears in the other world, and walking toward the megacity makes her bump against the walls of her house and indeed fall down the stairs. The noise wakes Eddie up, causing Casey to hide and decide to do this nearly differently. Casey goes to the middle of a huge field and touches the pin, allowing her to eventually appear in Tomorrowland. While taking the train to go further into the megacity, she discovers the pin has a timekeeper that is going down and that nothing can see her. Casey leaves the train at the coming stop and she sees some important scientists entering a different kind of cart. She tries to follow them, but suddenly water appears around her because the pin timekeeper is about to reach zero. Casey tries to ignore it and pushes through the water, but soon Tomorrowland disappears and Casey finds herself in a swamp. As soon as she returns home, Casey wakes her family Nate over and asks him for the word to their father's computer. The siblings search for the pin online and find an announcement from a store that will buy these pins from anyone. Casey writes down the shop address and asks Nate to tell their father she's going boarding with some musketeers. In the morning, Athena shows up at the house, so Nate gives her the camping reason. Athena can tell he is lying and pressures him until he eventually confesses. Meanwhile, Casey makes it to the shop from the announcement. The eccentric clerks are easily interested in it and confirm that what Casey saw was real. Tomorrowland is a place where all the brightest minds gathered to produce freely without the chains of government and rapacity, and the only way to pierce the megacity is through the pin. The clerks want to buy the pin and to know where Casey got it, but when Casey refuses to cooperate, they press a button to lock the door and reveal a brace of futuristic munitions that can shoot tube. Casey tries to hide among the wares but the clerks find her anyway and demand information on some girl. Suddenly, a grenade breaks through the window and freezes the clerks inside a force field. A fortified Athena enters the shop too and explains it's a time lemon that will not last long, also helps Casey get her hand out of the field. Unfortunately, this causes the lemon to shut off and the clerks are free again, so they counterattack. Athena fights them hand to hand with the help of Casey throwing wares at them, and when Athena removes one of their heads, Casey is shocked to discover both clerks were animatronics. After publicizing the animatronics are about to destruct, Athena drags Casey out of the shop just in time to avoid the explosion. Then Athena breaks an auto window to open it and pushes Casey inside before using a special tool to make the auto start as she explains they need to escape before they find them. On the road, Casey begins asking questions, and Athena tells her she was the bone that gave her the pin. Before she can say more, she suddenly begins conking, and Casey watches in horror how Athena fixes herself because she's an animatronic as well. Spooked, Casey jumps out of the auto and Athena tries to follow her, but as soon as she steps on the road, a truck hits her. The motorist incontinently comes to check on her, and Casey takes the chance to steal the truck to escape. Still, Athena is just fine and incontinently runs after the truck, jumping through the window to steal the keys and lock the door. Casey begins yelling, and Athena eventually manages to shut her up by confirming Casey is her last pin and they need to snappily go to Tomorrowland because they erected commodity they shouldn't have. Meanwhile, before they can probe more, a man named Dave shows up, introducing himself as Secret Service. After seeing the robot head, Dave also pulls out a futuristic armament and kills all the bobbies before turning to his companions, publicizing they have set up the girl and they should tell Nix. The girls are making their way to New York to find the only person that can get them back into Tomorrowland. Casey begins asking questions about the other people that got pins, but Athena cannot answer and shuts down. The coming morning, Athena wakes up and takes over the driving so Casey can rest. Athena tells Casey that the person they'll be visiting is called Frank, and once Casey falls asleep, Athena keeps herself entertained by flashing back all the good times she used to have with her friend. Hours laterly, Casey wakes up when she's suddenly pushed off the truck in front of a house in the country. Seeing as Athena's driving down, Casey has no choice but to approach the house, only to be chased by a guard canine. Casey passages and falls on the slush, which makes her realize the canine isn't leaving prints because it's a hologram. Ignoring the fake beast, Casey knocks on the door and shows her pin to the camera, asking to be taken to Tomorrowland. An unforeseen burst of air pushes Casey back and an aged Frank comes out of the house, demanding to know where Athena is. Hearing she's gone angers Frank and he tells Casey to leave because Tomorrowland is nothing but a manipulative taradiddle. Then Frank returns to his house and locks the door. Casey refuses to leave and waits outdoors indeed while it rains. Ultimately, she gets tired and looks around to make a plan. By starting a fire on the furrowing truck, Casey gets Frank to leave the house, and while he's too busy putting the deers out, Casey runs outside and locks the door. When Frank tries to enter again, Casey just pushes him back with the same burst of air. Casey begins looking around the house, chancing all feathers of crazy inventions. One particular machine plays a record of little Frank trying to make Athena laugh, and Athena telling him to stop trying. In another room, she finds a bunch of defenses keeping up with the news and a timekeeper that is sluggishly going down. Suddenly, a secret door under the stairs opens and Frank gets back into the house, ready to protest Casey out, but she convinces him to give her some answers. Frank was demurred out of Tomorrowland for erecting commodity he should not have, which is the timekeeper connected to the defenses. He wonders if Casey would want to know the date of her death and she says yes, but accepting her death may actually beget it, so she wouldn't believe it because they need to be suitable to make their own fortune. This statement causes the chance on the screen to fall, which greatly impresses Frank. Their discussion is suddenly intruded by the appearance of Dave and his agents, who are actually robots looking for Casey. Frank incontinently activates all the Essence hangouts, and when one robot uses her strength to get inside anyway, Frank uses a tool to electrocute her. Another robot is destroyed by an electrical trap on the wall, and Frank gets relief of two more by making them fall through a secret lattice. After that, Frank and Casey run to the living room, where one further robot is staying. Frank fights it hand to hand, and Casey helps him win by grabbing a special portal machine and sticking the robot outside. The brace makes their way upstairs, where further robots fall into the different traps around the house, until Dave catches up to them and holds Frank at gunpoint. Luckily, Casey finds a club and uses it to beat Dave to a pulp. Frank also drags Casey into the restroom and they jump into the hogshead, which Frank activates to transfigure it into a capsule. One further robot comes after them and tries to snare the hogshead, but at that moment Frank launches it, causing the capsule to fly out and land on the lake. Frank and Casey swim out and enter the forest land, where Frank has hidden a bike that will not start. The brace is suddenly startled by a light approaching them, but it's just Athena that came to pick them up. The triad leaves in the truck and as soon as they hit the road, Frank and Athena begin arguing. It's revealed that all pins were supposed to be destroyed, and Athena escaped with the last box of 12 to keep on retaining people. Frank is furious that further youthful people have been dragged into this and tells Casey that Athena prevaricated. She does not shut down if you ask too numerous questions, it's just her ignoring you. Frank thinks Athena puts up fake feelings to bait you in and abandon you laterally. Athena is hurt but ignores it for now to take them to the original station where Frank has installed his secret network that transmits to his house. There is another capsule staying for them, and once the humans are wearing the proper protection, they spark the system that teleports them down. Once they arrive, Casey discovers they are at the top of the Eiffel Tower. There is a guard near the door, but luckily Frank has brought a bunch of inventions in his bag, including a little tool that allows Casey to knock the guard out with just a light valve. They enter a room with an exhibition with notorious formulators, and Frank explains that Eiffel, Verne, Tesla, and Edison were the bones that started Tomorrowland by using the Eiffel Tower as an antenna that took them to the other world. There have always been rumors of a secret entrance, and after searching around, Frank activates it. This causes the Eiffel Tower to resolve into two and reveal a rocket, so the triad hurries inside as further robots arrive to capture them. The energy that the rocket expels when taking off pushes the robots down, and after flying over for a while, the robot goes back again, opening a portal as it falls at a great speed. Moments laterly, the group arrives in Tomorrowland. The authorities saw them fall and are coming after them, so Frank makes Athena hide a special lemon he brought with him inside her body. The first one to meet them is Nix, the megacity governor, who wants to arrest them. Frank and Athena snappily change his mind by informing him Casey was able of lowering the chance on the defenses. Shocked, Nix takes the triad to the headquarters where they keep Frank's dangerous invention, called a tachyon machine. When they take the elevator, Casey sees holograms which be flashes of the future, caused by the machine that utilizes a flyspeck that moves significantly faster than light. The group enters the center of the machine and Frank teaches Casey how to use it, allowing her to look at any point in humanity's history. Casey is shocked to see herself in her house many mornings agone, and Frank explains the machine can also look forward, so Casey begins going through history at a high speed until she eventually sees the issue. The machine has prognosticated that in 58 days, the world will end. Casey does not understand why they are not advising people on Earth, and Nix explains he doesn't care because that is the world that will end, not Tomorrowland. And he will not allow anyone to move by because they'll do to Tomorrowland the same thing they did to Earth. Casey refuses to accept this, and her station causes the screen to flicker for an alternate, showing a better world. Frank tries to point out this proves there is a chance, but Nix just knocks them all out. Moments laterly, Frank wakes up and finds Athena telling them they'll be deported again. Casey is depressed because this whole adventure has been for nothing, and when Frank tries to console her she snaps, criminating them of lying to her. As she begins to rant, she suddenly has a moment of consummation. Frank has been converting the machine signal to watch it at his house, and the signal is floating around Earth, zapping these ideas of doom into people's minds. It's a tone-fulfilling vaticination, but if Casey could change it with her sanguinity, it means that turning it off would allow people to see the light again. The guards come to pick the triad up so they can be demurred out of Tomorrowland through a gate. Casey tries to tell Nix about her discovery and asks him to turn off the machine, but Nix says there is no off button. His comm station makes Frank realize the verity. Nix is putting the idea in people's heads on purpose. Nix explains that in the history, trying to tell the government about the incoming doom was ignored, therefore he transferred the idea directly to people's heads as a warning to make them change their ways. Still, rather of working for a better future, humanity accepted the end of the world as ineluctable. In Nix's opinion, it is not the machine's fault, humanity has brought this to itself. Frank pretends to accept this and shakes hands with Nix, but only to touch his cuff and start the machine platform again. Athena and Casey knock out the guards while Frank fights Nix, who activates two robots to go after the girls. Frank asks Athena to use the lemon he gave her, but when Athena tries to, the robots catch her. Athena passes the lemon to Casey while she fights the robots, and Casey runs to the platform, which starts moving like crazy because Frank and Nix keep fighting over the cuff on the other side of the gate. Athena earns control of one of the robots and uses it to push the other one through the gate, causing it to attack Nix too. Casey manages to spark the lemon by watching a flash of the future, but when she's about to throw it, Nix regains control of the cuff and drags the platform down. Athena rushes to catch the platform with her robot, also runs to the control panel to close the portal, destroying the alternate robot and leaving Frank and Nix outdoors. At that moment, Casey finds the lemon, which is about to explode. Athena has no choice but to open the portal again, and once the men run back outside, they throw the lemon into the gate so it can explode down from them. The portal breaks and falls on top of Nix, landing him. Still, there is a gun hard that he reaches in order to kill Frank. Athena sees Frank dying and realizes it's a flash from the future, so she runs to put herself between Frank and the shot. Casey takes the gun from Nix and Frank tries to take Athena to a form shop, but Athena asks him to stop because there is not enough time. Before she failed, she needs Frank to know commodity veritably important, and she proceeds to play a series of recordings from the time they spent together all those times agone. Little Frank used to have a crush on Athena, but he was hurt when he realized she was a machine. This always bothered Athena and she kept voice journals that described how Frank made her feel effects that robots shouldn't. Frank is glad to hear Athena did like him too and that she no way stopped believing in him, so now it's time for Athena to go. Her body is about to destruct and she wants them to use that explosion to stop the machine. Frank uses a jetpack to fly Athena up, and after they say their farewells, Athena is dropped inside the machine. The whole structure explodes and the debris falls on Nix, killing him. Tomorrowland loses its power and Frank tries to keep control of the jetpack to at least land safely in the swash. Casey rushes to check on him, and as they begin talking about what to do next, a bunch of flashes from the future gives them an idea. First, Frank fixes the gate so Casey can reunite with her family. They begin working together on resuming the pin program, for which they make a bunch of robots like Athena. These robots use a gate to travel each over the world and leave pins for the bright minds that may help them make a better future for Earth. If you need to watch more interesting recap, then subscribe to the channel and watch the other interesting movies recaps. Thank you for watching.